we're meant to be refreshed after our break and our salah. Okay, before we continue with our series of the 10 promised paradise, because we've had a break, because we've made a salah, I just want to say two things before we go into our next companion. The first thing is, let us renew our intentions. We began our session this morning with our intention that we are only here for the sake of Allah. No other reason. And whatever benefit we get is for Allah's sake alone. So let's renew that in our hearts now, so we move into the next section with the same intention that we did for this first section. The second thing, I want to ask a question. Just before we broke, we talked about the death of Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, and we talked about the importance of the salah, and the fact that he didn't even break his salah having been stabbed. And we talked about how our salah should be. How did that make our salah just now? Anybody feel a difference? Yeah? Nodding? Any nodding? Yes. Right. What does that tell us? That tells us that when we are reminded that we can improve, when we're reminded that our salah is the miraj of the believer, when we're reminded of the importance of salah, when we're reminded that salah is for the remembrance of Allah, suddenly we had that reminder, we went straight to salah. Alhamdulillah, I imagine most of our salah would at least have some improvement because we were just reminded. This gives us the reminder of the importance of being reminded and seeking knowledge. I said being reminded and seeking knowledge, not just seeking knowledge. Why? Seeking knowledge alone isn't enough, because you can carry with you enormous amounts of knowledge. We all know the famous saying about the donkey that carries books. We can carry with us knowledge. If we don't get reminded how to implement it, it's useless. So that's all I wanted to say. I felt that maybe we were in a good position. Okay. Now we are on to our third of our companions of the al-Mubasharun, the 10 promised paradise, Uthman ibn Affan radiyallahu anhu. His nickname is the possessor of two lights. And I just want to begin with that. The possessor of two lights. Why was he known as the possessor of two lights? Because he was twice married to daughters of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, again, let's make it relevant to us. Anyone in this room got a daughter? Yeah? Quite a few people have daughters. Especially the fathers, I want to ask. When it comes to choosing your daughter's husband, you will agree with me, you will be the most discerning out of any potential rishta you can imagine in the world. This is your daughter. This is your beloved. He's going to be your son-in-law. Is the word daman? Is that the right word for saying? He's going to be your daman, right? It's got to be important. Rasulullah chose Uthman ibn Affan not once, but twice. After the death of Ұрайdah, the first of his wives, the first daughter of the Prophet that he was married to, Rasulullah again gave Kulthum as another wife to Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu. So before we even look at his life story, straight away you recognize something. That the Messenger of Allah, the greatest of creation, gives two of his daughters to be wives of Uthman ibn Affan. Now we see this man must possess something amazing. To be twice the son-in-law of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay. We finished with the death of Umar al-Khattab, and I mentioned that on his deathbed he had two requests. One was for the place of burial, for him to be buried. The second was, I didn't mention in full, he demanded a convening of some Sahaba, and the list of Sahaba, you will be surprised to see who they were. He convened the following Sahaba to choose the next successor. From his wisdom, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq chose him, radiallahu anhu, on his death. Umar al-Khattab knows he has to choose someone, but he doesn't know who is the most worthy. And he's in a state of illness and he's dying. So he decides, let me convene a shura, a council to decide. Who are the names of the people in the shura? Talha, Ali ibn Talib, Abdurrahman bin Auf, Saʿd ibn Abi Waqqas, Az-Zubayr ibn Awam, and Uthman ibn Affan. What do we see about those names? All the ones we are talking about today. So the six that were chosen to decide the next Khalifa, the Shura, were none other than six of the al-Mubasharun, minus him because he's passed away, and minus Abu Bakr as-Siddiq because he has also passed away. Right. So we now recognize that Uthman, as the son-in-law twice of the Prophet ﷺ, as the Khalifa, the third Khalifa of Islam, has a very, very high status. And we're going to look at a couple of aspects. I said I want to make it all about learning, about making it relevant for us. So I want to pick on two particular aspects of Uthman's life that I want to focus on for the next few minutes. The first one I want to focus on is his haya. What does haya mean? Somebody shout it out. Shyness, modesty. Our Rasul said every ummah, every nation has a particular characteristic. And the characteristic of my nation, the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the characteristic of my nation is haya. Modesty, shyness. He, alayhi salatu wasalam, said, if someone has no haya, then let them do anything. If someone doesn't have this modesty, this shyness, let them do anything. And this haya, this modesty, shyness, it's not just, sometimes we say, oh, so-and-so has haya, meaning they wear good hijab, they wear long. It's not just about that. Haya means everything about you carries with it humility, shyness, modesty, in your physical appearance, in how you behave in front of people, in how you see yourself. This is important, how you see yourself. If you have haya in how you see yourself, you don't walk around brashly, bragging. Now, why am I bringing this up right now as the first thing about his haya? Because we live in a time in human society. In our time, shyness is not really looked up upon. It's looked down upon. Our society, our TV, our media promotes the opposite of haya, boastfulness. It promotes being a show-off. It promotes being without modesty. In every aspect without modesty. The clothing that we're promoted to wear has no modesty. The behaviors we're meant to engage in have no modesty. Even the adverts you see, they are aimed to help us have no modesty. You need to have the fattest car. That's PH. Fattest, not FAT. You need to have the fattest car. You've got to have the best this. You've got to have the blingest watch. Everything has got to be what? The opposite haya. It's got to be about showing off. Immodesty. And immodesty is immorality. And unfortunately, because we are surrounded, and please don't think I'm saying this society. Wallahi, I'm not saying anything about this society. I'm saying every society. Go back home. Go to Pakistan. Go to Bangladesh. Go to Saudi Arabia. Go to Somalia. It's the same. Anybody been on holiday to Dubai or anywhere like that? What do you see there? Bling. Dubai is bling city central. Everything is the opposite of haya. And here we have the possessor of two lights with the most haya from amongst all of the people that we can think of. Let me just prove to you how much haya he would have. Rasulullah was once relaxing. And remember I said that Rasulullah described his two wazir. Who were his wazir from the heavens? Mikael and Jibreel. Who were his wazir from the earth? Umar, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. Now, he was sitting relaxing with them. And he was in a state that he was just a bit relaxed, chilling. You know when you're with your closest friends. Has it gone off? Maybe. Can you hear me? Has it gone off? Yeah. I can't see that far, sorry.
Yeah, I think it's gone off.
It's gone off. It's on there. So can you hear me without it? Yep. Okay. Okay, let's keep. You can hear me okay if I'm without it for a minute? Okay. So what did we say? We said Ash-Shaykhain, his closest companions. So when you're with your closest people, you're very relaxed. One time Rasulullah was sitting in a state of very relaxed state, leaning back, relaxing. Why? Because he was in his household, so he was in a nice relaxed state. Abu Bakr and Umar came to visit him. He remained in that state. He remained in that state. Uthman came to visit him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Again, please let me give you context. Who is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? He is the greatest of creation. Allah never created anything, let alone anyone, greater than Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He speaks from above 7 heavens. Jibreel alayhi salam brings him wahi. His word is haqq, his word is law. And when Uthman radiallahu anhu walks in, now he adjusts his garments to make sure he's sitting in a more, I don't want to say sensible, a more modest position. Never that the Rasul would never be immodest, but maybe a slightly more formal situation than he was with Abu Bakr and Umar. Abu Bakr and Umar were a bit surprised that you were being very relaxed with us, sitting, relaxing, leaning back. And when Uthman comes in, you adjusted your garments, you sat them more formally. Now again, context, who do we say he is? Uthman is his son-in-law. Do you have to be that way with your son-in-law? Look at what Rasulullah said. And this says not only something about Uthman radiallahu anhu, it says something about Rasulullah, the greatest of creation. The one who speaks from above seven heavens. He says, alayhi salatu wasalam, would I not have shyness, haya, in front of the ones that angels are shy from? Allah. The angels are shy from Uthman. The malaika are shy because Uthman's haya is so much. The malaika are shy before Uthman. Would I not have shyness? Did he need to have shyness before Uthman? Of course not. He is the Rasulullah. Did he need to have shyness before his son-in-law? Of course not. But he did because the humility of Rasulullah was such that he said, would I not have shyness before the one who that malaika have shyness before? So one of the characteristics that Uthman radiallahu anhu had was he had enormous shyness. He had enormous haya. He was very humble. Now, I want to focus for a moment, if you'll give me permission, on something very important about his life. Something very, very important about his life is this. He was a very, very wealthy man. Very wealthy. Sometimes we think that in Islam we shouldn't be wealthy. Oh no, it's alright to be poor. No. Allah is the one who's providing. Remember the Quran says, Allahu khairur raziqeen. Allah is the best provider of rizq. Allah is the one who provides the rizq. The question is not what Allah has provided you. The question is what do you do with it? What Allah has provided. Allah says in the Quran, He gives to whom He pleases and He withholds from whom He pleases. Allah chooses your rizq and my rizq and everyone else's rizq. We determine what should we do with it. Shall we spend it on blame? Or shall we spend it in the cause of Allah? And when we spend it in the cause of Allah, some unbelievable things happen. And this is what I'm going to focus on with Uthman radiallahu anhu. Let me give you an example. There is a well, many people when they visit Medina, you go on Hajj or Umrah, they will take you on a ziyarah, on a visit to one of the places called bi-l-Uthman. bi-l-Uthman is a well. It literally means bi-l-Uthman, the well of Uthman. It used to be known by the name of bi-l-Ruma. In the time of Rasulullah in Medina, not all of the wells gave water year round. Some of the wells would give temporarily, some at other times. But there was one well alone, which gave water all year round. All year round. And this was bi-l-Ruma. And bi-l-Ruma belonged to a very wise businessman. A very wise and shrewd businessman. Some of the rations say he was from Bani Israel. That's of no relevance other than to say he was a wise and shrewd businessman from Bani Israel. Meaning he was not from amongst the Muslims. Now, the Rasulullah made a deal, we can say. I'm going to use the word made a deal. He said to the companions, if anyone were to purchase this well, meaning because this would benefit the Muslims, this guy is charging a lot of money. He's extorting money. His is the only well that is year round. He's charging double, triple, quadruple, whatever it was for a bucket of water. You need water. Who doesn't need water? You go, he's going to charge you more. So Rasulullah says, anyone who purchases this well has a route to Jannah. There's a deal there, right? You buy the well, you go to Jannah. You buy the well, you go to Jannah. Who is the first? It's a very expensive well. Uthman radiallahu anhu. He was so tempted by this. And he was said as a businessman, he had the Midas touch. Whatever he touched turned to gold. He was such a successful businessman. He was so wealthy that he decided he's going to go and buy the well. The businessman who owns bi-l-Ruma, the man from Bani Israel, says no. Then he thinks for a minute, he says, hang on a minute, Why? He doesn't want to sell the well because he's making a fortune from this well. He then says something to himself. He says, hang on a minute. This guy Uthman, everything he touches in business multiplies and multiplies. I'm going to go into business with him. He says, I tell you what, I'm not going to sell you the well. I'll sell you half the well. Uthman also being a very intelligent man says, let's do it. He buys half the well from him. He says, but I have a deal. If we share in this well, one day is your share, one day is my share. Meaning, on a Monday you do what you want with the well, on a Tuesday I do what I want with the well, on a Wednesday you do what you want. So alternate days, you do what you want, I'll do what I want. The man says, okay, no problem. By the way, let me just give you an idea of the narrations about how much this well cost. There are a number of narrations, the lowest of which say that the cost of this well to Uthman was 70,000 dinar, and the highest was 100,000 dinar. 1 dinar in today's currency is about 190, let's call it $200. Okay? My maths is rubbish, because so if anyone's got a calculator, 70,000 times $200 is what? How many? 14 million. That's what the equivalent would be in dollars today. And we see a price, 70,000 to 100,000 dinar. That's millions of dollars he paid for this well. Okay? Now, the man says, one day is yours, one day is mine. No problem. So the man says, one day is yours, one day is mine. So the man says, okay, let's see what Uthman is going to do. I'm keeping my prices high to start with. Let's see what Uthman does. So the man keeps his price high for the people to buy water on day 1. On day 2, Uthman announces, water is free. No charge. So what does everybody do? You come and fill double on the day of Uthman, and on the next day, the man from Bani Israel, he's not getting any business. So this continues. The Muslims are benefiting from Uthman's purchase. Uthman is benefiting because it's a route to Jannah. Eventually, the man gets fed up and says, you know what? This is not helping me because he's not making any money. He sells the rest of the world to Uthman. Uthman radiallahu anhu, bear in mind he paid 70,000 dinar for this well. He's giving his day's waters free. He could have kept giving that water free. Instead, do you know what he did? He gave that well as a waqf. The word waqf means a trust. It's a trust, an endowment. Something that will continue to benefit and benefit and benefit ad infinitum. Forever. For as long as it exists, it will continue to benefit the believers. But that's not the amazing thing I want to bring to your attention. It is amazing that he paid that much money and he's giving it all for free to benefit the believers. That's amazing in itself. I want to go to something even more amazing. And remember, this is all about lessons for us. Uthman was a businessman. He saw a deal. Not for the dunya, he saw a deal for the akhirah. When you go to Medina today, you will still see Bir Uthman. And it was still a waqf today. And the waqf of Bir Uthman, there is in the Ministry of Endowments in Saudi Arabia, there is a government department called the Ministry of Waqf, of Endowment, of Awqaf. In that ministry, there is still an endowment, a waqf, in the name of Uthman ibn Affan. If you go to the back of the Haram in Medina and you see some new hotels being built, if you read carefully the sign, it says, being built by who? By Uthman ibn Affan. How? Because the waqf he left them 1400 years ago, to this day produces, and I'm putting a figure that I found last year, so it may be more this year. Last year, Uthman ibn Affan's waqf produced 50 billion Saudi riyals of money every year. That's 10 billion pounds. 10 billion pounds Uthman ibn Affan's waqf from Bir Uthman produces today. And that 10 billion pounds goes to feed miskin, people who don't have things. It goes to provide water. There are dates that are grown around Bir Uthman because there's water, irrigation. Those dates go to the miskin. So 1400 years later, I just want you to think about this for a second. He plants a seed 1400 years ago of this well, which he says this is waqf for the whole ummah. And 1400 years later, 10 billion pounds a year is still being drawn from it. Do we see the deal he made? And we have opportunities for similar deals. But before we go into our deals, let me give you another example. At the time of the Ghazwa of Tabuk, Rasulullah was trying to collect donations. They didn't have standing armies, so you had to get donations. Donations to try and create the army to go and fight the expedition to defend the Muslims. Rasulullah was asking for donations. We know Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, mashallah, was so generous, he gave everything. So he was the most generous in terms of percentages, he gave everything. And when asked, what did you leave for your family? He says, I left with them Allah and His Messenger. He gave 100%. But in terms of amounts, Uthman radiallahu anhu gave so much at the collection of Tabuk that it said that a third of the entire army, the money was provided by Uthman. He kept giving. Rasulullah would ask, Uthman would give. He would ask again, والسلام, hoping somebody else would join in. Uthman would give again. He kept asking, Uthman kept giving. Till the end, he gave, one narration says 1,000 camels. A camel equivalent is like an S-Class Mercedes. He gave 1,000 equivalents of S-Class Mercedes. 1,000 camels. And 1,000 dinars, gold coins. We said that dinar is about $200. Work it out. $200,000 and 1,000 S-Class Mercedes. When he left the gold in the lap of Rasulullah had tears in his eyes, and he said, nothing will touch Uthman after this day. Nothing will touch Uthman after this day. Nothing will touch Uthman after this day. Meaning what? He's been so generous for the sake of Allah. He's been so generous giving for Allah's cause. Nothing is going to touch him again. Nothing is going to touch him again. I want to bring one more example in this space of his generosity. We've seen the world, we've seen this. One time Medina was in drought, terrible drought. And this is where we're going to conclude, because this is really important. We need to understand. Our brothers are going to give us some examples where we can benefit exactly the same way in a moment. And I hope Uthman radiallahu anhu's example will be a lesson for me before any of you. But you will also take the same lesson. One time Medina was in such a drought that there was no food stuff, there was no water, there was nothing. The people were really in a difficult situation. Uthman radiallahu anhu, being the mega businessman that he was, he has a caravan arriving to Medina with 1,000 camels. That's like the equivalent today of one of those giant container ships. 1,000 camels is like a giant container ship with all those containers on it. And the majority of this 1,000 camels was food and provisions. Now, when the news came, there's a 1,000 camel caravan, there's a massive container ship coming with all these goods, the businessmen of Medina, they gathered with Uthman and they thought, okay, here's an opportunity. He's got all his goods coming into Medina. We got a chance here, we can make some good business. So they went to Uthman as a collective, as a group of businessmen, and they said, Uthman, we'll tell you what, for every dinar, 1 dinar, what it means, the equivalent of ours, we'll give you 100% profit. For every dinar worth of goods you have, we'll give you 2 dinars. It means 100% profit. So for every £10 worth of stuff you brought in, we'll buy it off you for 20. That's a pretty good deal, right? Any businessmen here? 100% profit is good? Very good. No one thinks 100. He says, no, I've got a better deal. They're like, what? 100% profit, you got a better deal? They said, okay, 200%. Uthman says, no, I've got a better deal. 300%, 400%, 500%. They went to 600%. Now they're sweating, so like me, sweat's coming off their head, and they're saying 600%. Who's giving you a deal of 600%? We can't believe it. Uthman said, when they went to 6,000%, I've got a better offer. He said, I have an offer of 1,000%. 1,000%. 10 times what I paid for it, I'll get back for it. They're shocked. Who gave you 1,000%? We're the businessmen of Medina. We know everyone. No one's got 10,000%. He said, Allah. Allah has offered me 10,000%. Allah has offered me 1,000 times the value, 1,000%, 10 times the value of everything that I have. Allah has offered it for me. And do you know what he did then? He announces to the whole of Medina, the entire caravan, including the camels that carried it, and even their reins. Do we understand what we mean by reins on the camel? It's like the steering wheel. Even the steering wheel of the camel, the goods on the camel, the camels themselves, and even the reins, the steering wheel, meaning even the stuff that you ride the camel with, all of it from today is sadaqah. And he gave the whole lot away. He gave the whole lot away. Why was he able to do this? He just said Allah made him a deal, right? He said Allah's offered me 10 times the amount. Allah's offered me 1,000%. We started by saying about the love of Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for all the companions had. We talked about how Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was the highest in terms of his yaqeen and his tawakkul. But we see examples of iman, yaqeen and tawakkul throughout all of these companions, the al-Mubasharun, and more than them. And here is an amazing example, because Allah says in the Quran, and who will give to me a beautiful loan that I may repay it manyfold? Who will give me a beautiful loan that I may repay it manyfold? Allah is saying, you spend in my cause, you give sadaqah in my cause, I will repay it manyfold. Who? Ar-Razaq. Hands up anybody in the room who believes Allah does not provide our rizq. Alhamdulillah, no one puts their hand up. Of course we would. Because we know Allah is Ar-Razaq. So the rizq in my pocket is given by who? Allah, Ar-Razaq. So is it a problem for me to give it back to Ar-Razaq, to loan it back to Allah, and Allah doesn't need it? We need it. We need to give back to Allah. Why? Because we will gain reward for it, and He will repay it many times. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, none of your wealth can ever decrease through sadaqah. That to me is phenomenal. None of your wealth can ever decrease through sadaqah. Your wealth can't decrease through sadaqah. And shaitan says the opposite. There's a verse in the Quran where Allah tells us that shaitan tempts you with faqr, poverty. Shaitan tempts you with poverty and lewdness. And Allah promises prosperity. Shaitan is tempting us with poverty. That's true. When we think about giving sadaqah, what sometimes happens? Oh, you know what? I needed a new D&G handbag. I don't wear D&G handbags, but if you wanted to, whatever it might be. Some voice, I think, where did that come from? Shaitan says, don't spend it. What if you need it? You've got to get your children married. What about their education? What about a rainy day? What about the extension? What about this? Was Uthman thinking this? He gives it all and all and all. Why? Because he says, Allah has promised me 1,000%. Allah has promised me 1,000%. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying, none of your wealth can ever decrease through sadaqah. Now the biggest lesson I want us to take from Uthman today is we should be in that place. We don't have much ability to help the cause of Allah like they did. They physically worked for the stride with their bodies, their blood, and their arms and their legs and their efforts for the sake of Allah. We live in such prosperity. The physical struggle is not there. We live in such security. The physical struggle is not there. What is our struggle? The way we can serve the cause of Allah above anything else for our day and age today. Because alhamdulillah, let me let every one of us know something very important. The poorest person in this room, and I don't know who you are, it may be me, it may be you, we don't know. The poorest person in the room, by what Allah has given them, is still within the top 5% of the wealthiest of this ummah. That puts things in perspective, doesn't it? The poorest Muslim in the UK today, whoever they are, is still in the top 5% of the Muslim ummah in terms of wealth. Because when you look around our ummah, look at Bangladesh, Pakistan, Somalia, many of our countries, Burma, Kashmir, Palestine, Syria, Jordan, Syria, Palestine, that whole region. when you see our brothers and sisters, can I ask a question? Has anyone ever wondered, will they be able to feed their child next week? We normally think, what will I feed my child? Not will I be able to. Many parents in the room I see. Many of us, we don't necessarily think, will I be able to feed my child next week? We say, what will I be able to feed my child? Our children decide what they want. Anybody remember a couple of years ago, there was a little video, maybe last year, of a little Syrian girl. And she was in a bunker as they were bombing. And with tears in her eyes, she turns to the camera and she said something which, wallahi, I feel sick with myself hearing this, because we wonder, what have we done? What are we doing? Not you, me. What am I doing? I'm not going to say we. What? Mashallah and barak, I'm sure you're all doing a million times more than me. What am I doing? She turned to the camera and she said, inshallah there'll be food in Jannah. Inshallah there will be food in Jannah. Because she's so hungry. We decide what we will feed our children. They wonder, will they feed their children? Uthman recognized the Deen. He knew that whatever he invests in the cause of Allah will not just benefit in dunya, which it will, because Allah will repay it many times. And the Rasul said, your wealth will never decrease. It will benefit in akhirah. What did I say earlier? 50 billion Saudi riyals a year from the waqf of Uthman ibn Affan, still generating sadaqah today. With that, we will conclude the story of Uthman ibn Affan. And our brothers have some announcements, and then we will reconvene, and we will talk about the conclusion of Uthman ibn Affan. One more thing I want to say about him, and then Ali ibn Affan.